Hi there, my name's Sheppard and I'm the author of Crime Writer, which has just been shortlisted for the Daphne du Maurier Award for Excellence in Mystery Suspense. Crime Writer is a fresh take on the crime and mystery genre with a hint of magical realism and another hint of whip-smart rom-com, telling the story of a crime novelist who recruits her main characters to investigate her possibly unfaithful fiancé. Full of fast-paced adventure and dry humour, it's perfect for fans of Janet Evanovich's action-packed Stephanie Plum novels or Mary Stewart's stylish romantic suspense. If you love an addictive read that's a little bit dark and a little bit funny, then head to the Mystery and Thrillers page of the Australian Book Lovers website or check out dimesheppard.com. It's available in paperback and ebook everywhere online you buy good books. I'll also be doing a podcast soon if you'd love to know more, so stay tuned.
Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A huge warm welcome to everyone and an astronomical thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, as always, is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature spanning a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I am Darren Kazenko, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader, and one of your hosts and co-founders of the Australian Book Lovers podcast, coming to you today from Kaurna country in a slightly wintry, chilly South Australia.
Well, there you go. It's very sunny where I am, and I am Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, and your other co-founder and host, coming to you from a quite sunny Wurundjeri country over here on the east coast of Australia, and here for what is, I believe, a fairly significant podcast.
Yes,
number 60.
Yes, here we are, episode number 60. Oh, we're getting closer to 100, and so I think it's almost time to start buying the good champagne when we see it on special. And
yes,
stock heaps and heaps of bottles. Yeah, so that we come at episode 100, we're going to pop it. But episode 60 is just as much worthy of celebration. We've got so much in store today. I think you've got a fantastic guest that you had the pleasure of interviewing.
Yes, a fantastic author. And in fact, an author who is a quarter. Her age is a quarter of what the episode is. So a 15-year-old, fantastic, lovely to chat with, Kanako Okiron from Tassie. And she talks about her book, It's Not Like in the Movie. So, yeah, really good chat. Loved it.
Yeah, can't wait. That's coming very soon on the show. And what a source of inspiration. That warms my heart to know that, that there's books being released by individuals 15. I hope that they can start releasing them when they're 10. I don't care when they release them, as long as everybody's writing. It just means that the beautiful, I guess, future of writing is in safe hands.
The pool of creativity is deep and broad and, ready to deliver all these wonderful, wonderful stories. So it was really nice to chat to her.
Yeah, well, I think she's arrived
completely different, actually, talking about fame and the benefits and disadvantages and the problems with fame. So, it was good.
Wonderful. And being a part of episode 60, I think, is a wonderful thing, because did you know that the number 60, well, it has a vibration, and that vibration stands for love, balance, motherhood, and the home.
Well, now, there you go.
And in theory, the 0 in 60 adds a cosmic dimension about flow, cycles, and the rhythms of life. It is a loving and healing vibration that creates harmony in the surroundings. So what a beautiful number 60. But, of course, there was quite a few events in Australia in 1960 that took place.
Yes, well, this is true. Now, of course, I need to tell you that in bingo, 60 is a little bit boring. It's just called 5 dozen. So, nothing exciting there.
Okay. It must be an accountant that had to come up with that one.
Yeah.
Well, did you know in 1960 Australia, on the 14th of January, some people are going to be happy about this. I guess some people are going to be sad, but the Reserve Bank and Commonwealth Bank were created. So there we go. But either way we look at it, it is a milestone in Australian history. Now, on the 10th of June, a little bit of a sad one, the Able Tasman crashed at Mackay in Queensland. And that killed 29 people. And unless I'm mistaken, to date, it remains the worst loss of life in peacetime air crash in Australia. So not a fantastic milestone.
Not such a good
milestone.
Newsworthy.
Similarly, on a little bit of a downer, which I'm not familiar with this case, but an 8-year-old schoolboy, Graham Thorne, was kidnapped in Sydney, and apparently it was to extort money from his parents, who had recently won the Sydney Opera House lottery. So I read that it was quite a famous, famous in the sense of, quite newsworthy crime story for Australia in 1960, and remains so. There's quite a few downers in 1960.
Perhaps I need to move on. Skip a few. Let's go find me something happy. There was this really, really brilliant person born in 1960. Yeah, it was around December. It was about 10 days before Christmas. She was a little bit early, but yeah, she was born into a family in Victoria, born at the Royal Women's Hospital in Melbourne. Yeah, there you go.
I'm striking a blank here. I need more.
She did a lot of things in her life, and turns out, she wanted to be a greengrocer when she was a little girl, but ended up doing a whole lot of other things. But yes, 1960 was a good year.
Yes. Well, congratulations for joining the planet Earth on that year. I think the world's obviously a better place for it.
Thank you, Darren.
I mean, I wasn't there yet, so I'm just...
No, you were still a twinkle in your father's eyes, they say.
Yes. Well, this will be an interesting segue. Speaking of twinkle in my father's eyes, in 1960, did you know that the world's very first plastic spectacle lenses, which represent 60% lighter frame than glass lenses, were designed by Scientific Optical Laboratories in Adelaide?
There we go. Keep an Adelaide one in. There you go.
Well, actually, Veronica, I'm going to get two in, because in 1960 was also, to finish on a high note, the first Adelaide Writers' Week, and it was held as part of the Adelaide Festival of Arts. So there we go.
Which is quite a good one, from all accounts. Yeah, really good.
But I think they're spectacle lenses. That's massive to think that they came out from little old Adelaide, and I'm sure that most of the world now enjoys those lenses, or at least a form of. Wow, there you go. Talk about punching above the weight. Any city in Australia bringing those in, those designs or inventions that eventually take over the world and change the lifestyle for millions upon millions of people. So there we go. That is just a little bit snippet. Yeah, a couple of downers in 1960, but it's just like our genres. We've got, we can have humor, we can have romance, but then you can jump into a little bit of crime and action or horror. So always a little bit of sprinkling. And of course, always a reflection of the world, which is something that literature does so well. And we'll probably chat about that a little bit more as we move into the interview. But how about we jump into some episode 60 news?
Ta-da. Okie dokies, here we are with some news, and just a slightly educational piece of news, I guess. There is a book that has been removed from the Miles Franklin Literary Award long list following the discovery of plagiarism. So, which is quite interesting. Now, without going into the all the bits and pieces of it, there were several areas where there was a claim that the author had copied passages from a number of different books. So that was a little bit of a worry. I haven't read deeply into it because there's a lot of toing and froing, and while the author said yes that he did, what seems to be missing is the acknowledgement of the fact that he'd used those texts, and the saying references to other texts were deliberate. They were a pastiche of the great 19th century Russian novels, and he wanted the appropriate passages to be seen and recognised as in a collage. Now, that's all very well, but there are ways and ways to put other people's work in your own. So I just thought it would be useful to just have a quick chat about plagiarism, which is the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as your own. And look, it can be very tricky for writers, particularly writers who read a lot, who read currently, to not accidentally put in some pieces of other people's works. Now, taking great chunks out of it, as some students were wont to do to impress teachers, is now a thing of the past, because of course the teachers can just put it through a plagiarism checker and go, no. Or I read that in your brother's work 3 years ago. That sounds awfully familiar. So there are, ways to look at that in terms of scholarly and academic things, but you can also put other people's work in your book if there is permission and acknowledgement. For example, in my novel or in my memoir, Breathing While Drowning, the work of Maureen Murdoch, the heroine's journey, I wrote to her publisher and asked for permission to put some passages in. And what I had to do was provide the passages. I had to tell them about the book and why I was using that work. And then they passed that on to the author, who sent me back a very nice letter and said, yes, absolutely, you can. So the book is referenced each time I use something of Maureen's. It's in inverted commas. There's a reference at the end of the chapter or at the end of the book. And so it's clear that those words were not mine, that they belong to somebody else, and that I encourage people to read Maureen's book as well, because I got a lot from it. So there are those kind of references that you could put in a non-fiction book. And it's trickier, I guess, with a fiction book in that, you know, there are dragons and there are dragons. You know, in your mind, does a dragon look like Smaug from Tolkien, or does it look like, you know, one of the ones from something new from, you know, one of Kylie Chan's books, where they have, you know, a more Chinese flavour in the mythical four-legged, two-legged, you know, all those kind of things. So it can be tricky. But plagiarism, how to avoid plagiarism, of course, is to, you know, not do those kind of things. But what you can do is think about who owns the copyright, and then how long is the copyright, because in Australia, copyright generally lasts for the life of the creator plus 70 years. So you can have a look at the Australian government's duration of copyright for specific things. And under the Copyright Act in Australia, copyright owners have a number of exclusive rights, including reproduction, so photocopying, scanning, downloading, publishing, so we can distribute copies for sale unless you have a contract with the publisher where you give them permission. Performing or playing the work in public, communicating to the public, so making it available online by email, conference paper, making an adaptation or translation of the work, and the right to do any of the above in relation to the adaptation of the book. You know, you might go on and do something completely different. Then there are moral rights. Then there's defences to infringement, which is kind of fair dealing, and fair dealing for purposes of research or study. So there's quite a lot involved in it, but really there are, you know, copying limits if you want to use somebody's work. You know, they say you can use up to sort of 10% of the number of pages or one chapter. Or, you know, if it's in electronic, you know, 10% is probably a little bit harder to do, but still. Now, you're allowed to copy the whole of the work if it's out of print or is unavailable for purchase within a reasonable time. So you can, you know, check with, you know, whoever you wanting to copy the work from, not for just your own enjoyment. You know, don't encourage that. And there's a terrible thing happening with influencers on TikTok who are suggesting people get ebooks and then send them back, which is not a good thing, because that means that the author has to pay for them, which is hideous. You know, guidelines for assessing when fair. Think about, you know, but just being reasonable. Is copying connection with the course of study? What's the nature of the work? Is it less likely to be copied if it had a sort of commercial value? Could you obtain the work, you know, for a fair price and do that rather than copy it off the internet? And just like downloading pirate tapes, you know, don't download pirate PDFs of books that somebody else has illegally copied. So think about those kind of things. One of the other little comments I just want to put in here. So we've said in Australia, copyright is pretty much as soon as you make the work, it is yours. But there is also a Creative Commons license. So I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah, so Creative Commons is a standardized way to give the public permission to share and use your creative work on condition of your choice. So you can decide that you're happy for anyone to use your work as long as they attribute it to you, or that they can remix or transform or build on the material, or that they can use it for any kind of private work but not commercial, or that they're not allowed to modify it, or they can modify. You know, there's a whole range of things. There's about 6 different licenses that you can put out. And by doing that, your work has the opportunity to, you know, be shared widely. A lot of photography is done this way as well. So, you know, people put Creative Commons on, you know, please use the images, but please attribute, you know, to the creator and all those kind of things. So if you're considering using other people's work, even if it's an image in a blog, think about whether it is a free image, whether it's been put up with Creative Commons license, or whether in fact it needs to be attributed to the artist. So, yeah, that was just an interesting little different thing happening, and good that something like the Miles Franklin really has, removed that book until it's made clear whether or not that person was, human error, not deliberately trying to, fraud the other authors, or whether, in fact, he did just go, I'm just whacking a bit of whatever in there. I suspect it was somewhere in the middle. Who knows?
Well, and I think, when you bring up plagiarism today, I think, if from my perspective anyway, it's either, pilfering from research papers or previous assignments. Obviously, if you're struggling or you just want to, bypass the system a little bit when it comes to getting grades, I would expect that with any, especially with today's technology. It happened when there was no technology, and it's going to happen when there's technology. And look, some people get away with it, some people get caught. When it comes to literature, though, it's such a minefield out there. But the only plagiarism I can think of that would really, to me, represent plagiarism would be, because of the enormous number of ebooks that are now available. I mean, technically, you could pretty much be, there's nothing stopping you operating under a pen name, and you could copy the entire contents of someone's book and put it as under a pen name. It would take, some pretty good software or somebody to recognise that, to just point out that, hey, that's not actually your book. So that I think, so for me, plagiarism in essence is either, try doing students being students here and there, or in nefarious reasons. And I'm assuming with the technology that allows us to share ebooks so readily, my guess is that there's technology there to capture those people that are looking to game the system. Just like there was many gaming the systems when the ebook sort of began. For example, people writing books that were 10 pages long. Then someone buys it, there's no refund on that, and then they make so much money, and they could keep changing their pen name, and so there's always people gaming the system, and but the system will always eventually catch up and make it
you
harder
hope that it
do.
does. You hope that it does, because I know in the early days of the internet and putting ebooks online and those kind of things, that there were many opportunities where books were taken or manuscripts were taken, and even I know some disreputable so-called hybrid publishing companies who would take authors' works and publish them without any link back to the author, and they would just basically steal their manuscript and put it up. So there, I read blogs about people removing or going to court or asking websites to take it down, etc., and those have been done, but it is time consuming and frustrating, because as soon as you take it down, somebody else is going to put it up somewhere else. So it's a little tricky. Yes. But there you go.
It's a learning curve, isn't it?
It is a learning curve.
And hopefully maybe that's a few episodes we can start focusing on different aspects of, publishing ebooks, and the landmines you need to watch out for, the armour you can apply to your digital format to try and protect it a little bit more, and all those steps in between. Yeah.
Yes. And look, there are some great people. We could certainly get some people from the ASA, I'm sure, to come on and have a chat to us about some things, as we have had in the past. So I thought I would go from publishing to Pavlova.
Oh, because are we up to the letter P?
We're up to the letter P.
You're beauty.
Australian Words and Idioms from the Australian National University School of Literature, Languages and Linguistics. So P, for anybody who does not know Pavlova, I suspect that you haven't been talking to an Australian or a Kiwi for many years, because Pavlova is a meringue dessert with a soft centre topped with whipped cream and fresh fruit, or chocolate mince, or Maltesers, or I've done it with a lemon curd. So there's lots of great things to do. It was named after the Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova, who toured Australia and New Zealand in 1926 to great acclaim. The Pavlova, also formerly called Pavlova cake, is claimed as a national dessert by both countries, and there has been much discussion about where it was invented. It is clear that the term Pavlova is first recorded in New Zealand in 1927, but in this instance it refers to a moulded, multi-layered jelly dessert. So the first New Zealand reference to the more familiar meringue dessert occurs in a 1933 cookery book. The first Australian reference difference is 2 years later. The shape and appearance of the pav may originally have been intended to suggest a ballerina's tutu. So there you go.
I suspect Australia would need a slightly better lawyer if we were going to court on that one. The evidence seems to show the Kiwis got it.
Indeed. So it says here, if the Kiwis can claim the first evidence for Pavlova, Australia can claim the first evidence of the common abbreviation PAV, first recorded in 1966. As you see, I already shortened it to PAV. We are dreadful at shortening names in Australia, but we do all the time.
Well, PAV I've never used, but I have heard, growing up I did use the word PASH. Now,
Pash?
I'm wondering if PASH is in your repertoire of
so much.
the P words.
So I have learnt a great trick with the PAV, which I learnt from one of the ladies I used to work with at one of the local hospitals. She used to do her PAVs upside down. So if you know PAV, they have a crust, which is a lovely meringue and egg white sweet thing, and then in the middle they're kind of gooey and marshmallowy depending on what you put in and how you bake it. But she used to do her PAVs over an upturned cake tin, so that when you take the PAV off, just put a foil and some corn flour. When you take the PAV off, all the crunchy bit is on the outside and all the marshmallowy bit is on the inside. Really good and much easier to cut slabs and put on your cake, but put on your plate. But anyway, there you go.
Sounds better than that. Well, I'd say ridiculous, but not always ridiculous. But when you get a fancy deconstructed hamburger, that's not a deconstruct. It's not a hamburger anymore. It is just you got a bit of toast on the plate with a little bit of veggies and a slab of meat with cheese on it. But anyway,
yeah,
I digress.
All right, let me give you then a prawn. So a prawn is often used in Australia as a general term, as a fool, a term of ridicule. It's a figurative use, of course, because a prawn is in fact an edible crustacean, high on Australia's list of favourite foods. The Australian sense of fool is first recorded in 1893. So that's pretty early to be calling somebody.
I've never heard.
Have you heard? You've never heard anybody called a raw prawn?
No, not at all. I have to admit, no.
Yeah, well, those I have indeed heard, and that's been recorded for 1940, and it means an act of deception, a swifty. He don't come the raw prawn with me. Don't try and pull one over me, kind of thing. It derives from the notion that something is difficult to swallow, as a whole prawn or raw prawn would be. Yeah, well, but there you go.
I'm not a big fan of prawns, but I have heard the term, slippery as an eel.
I haven't got to ease yet.
Yeah, which is used in not so much as a full way, but as someone obviously can't be trusted and is always trying to get one over you. Like someone who indulges in. What were we just talking about? Sorry.
Prawns.
No.
No, deception, plagiarism.
Plagiarism, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, it's similar to someone who might to operate in plagiarism. But yes, prawns. So, that's interesting.
Yeah, so don't come the raw prawn, but they're an act of deception or a swifty. So, yeah, don't treat me like a fool, basically, is what you're trying to say to people. So there you go. All right, one more P word. So this is not one that I've heard. So this is possum. So to stir the possum, to excite interest or controversy, to liven things up. So have you ever heard that?
No, I can't say that I have. I can imagine where stirring up a possum would make things a little bit more lively in real life. So.
They don't like to be disturbed from sleep. So the phrase is first recorded in 1888 and probably developed as the obverse of the phrase to play possum, which means to pretend to be asleep or unconscious when threatened, in imitation of a possum's supposed behaviour. So, stir the possum. You could still feel the enthusiasm months after. So there you go. I haven't heard that one before.
No, I do have vague memories of the term, play possum, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, where you just pretend to be asleep. All right. That will do for peas. Have you got any news for us, Darren?
I do indeed. And it's been a bit of a long time coming, and there was a few hurdles along the way, a few moments where I had to scratch everything and start again. And definitely a learning process, but I am very, very happy to let all of our listeners know that the new feature on the Australian Book Lovers, the short story portal, is about to go live. So all of the niggly technical bits and odds and ends and links and all that jazz has finally been tidied up, and I've worked out how to get it all going to where we wanted it to be.
Fantastic.
So that means now I've already got a couple of authors' short stories up, but we haven't made the page live yet because we definitely want a few more stories there, just so that we can do a big launch. So for all of our listeners out there, if you have short stories, if you want to write short stories, if you know people that enjoy writing short stories, even poetry, absolutely, please do send them in. I think I've set it up to 5,000 words, but maximum 5,000 words. The beautiful part about it all is that it means anybody can visit the website, pick on a genre they like, and they can be reading your short story with essentially one tap of a button, one touch of the screen. And so the submission is so simple. Require obviously your name, the title of the short story. Now you can enter the short story as a body of text into our form, which I'll tell you where to find that, or you can simply attach your Word document, PDF, whatever format the story is in. There's also an invitation to include a cover for your short story if you want to whip something up and for a bit of fun. If not, I can more than happy to put together a cover for the short story. Finally, if you'd like anybody to follow you, whether it be on your Instagram, whether it's a website or any sort of social media link, include that link so that when somebody's reading your short story, when they finish, they can of course choose to follow you or learn a little bit more about you. So it's going to be fantastic. The next stage moving from this will be audio book forms of the short stories. So that's going to be another huge, fantastic step. But first and foremost, the short stories are now ready to go. So as soon as we get a few from each genre, I will be pulling the button. They will be live, and it'll be a whole new adventure on the Australian Book Lovers website. So can't wait. So for example, today's guest, and obviously a writer, I suspect there's probably a few short stories in the drawer or on a file somewhere on the laptop or on the tablet. So, and she probably knows a whole heap of friends. So to all our listeners, anybody who knows somebody who's writing short stories, now's the time to send it through, because we'll also be highlighting many short stories on each podcast moving forward. So how do you get your short story on the website? It's very simple. Just visit www.australianbooklovers.com. At the top, you'll see a tab that says For Authors. Click that, and there will be an instruction right there, a simple form to fill out, and we will get it uploaded. And again, please do, if you want to have some fun, enjoy a cover. Include a cover. Don't feel pressured at all. If you don't know how to, or not comfortable doing it, or don't have the time, flick the story through anyway. We'll get the cover done and have a bit of fun while we're at it. So that is our news, and I'm super excited because
That's good.
I know. Obviously, we've got so many fantastic Australian authors out there, and a lot of them may not have penned that novel yet, but they may have so many fantastic short stories. And I just want, we celebrate Australian authors on AustralianBookLovers.com, and this is going to be a brand new way to celebrate a whole new, I guess, demographic of authors, and an opportunity for writers to have fun and be regular contributors. And when we shift to the audio book format for selected titles, then of course that will be a feature on the podcast as well. So exciting times ahead, starting with the short story, where your imagination is all that is we ask for the limit. So as far as your imagination goes, that's what we can take. So across all genres, up to 5,000 words, simple, paste your text in or attach the file using our very simple online form, and let us have the super fun show to begin. So it's going to be amazing time, and I just can't wait to see all the short stories coming in, see all the different tales to be told, all the different genres. And of course, I've always wanted to, for all of our listeners to be able to enjoy our website in a regular way and become more of a family. And once we have a continuous short stories coming on, great opportunity if you're stuck on a train, plane, bus, automobile, waiting room, can't sleep, relaxing in a beanbag, wherever you might be, and you feel like treating yourself to a little short story, then you're going to be able to jump in a matter of seconds and be swept away onto some literary short adventure. So there we go. That is my news for episode number 60.
That is a big piece of news. Well done. Good effort.
Yes, I do. We'll be honest. There was a couple of times there where the laptop nearly went through the window because it's a learning curve, and just trying to get all the pieces to meet. Obviously, there's a lot of moving pieces, digital moving pieces.
Yeah.
And so that we can get to a point where we can simply, go through the fun of just accepting all the submissions and getting them up there. So I can't wait for everybody to see it. We'll put something in the newsletter as well about that, and obviously on social media and in our show notes. But as soon as we get a few more short stories in, we will pull the button, make the announcement, and it will be live. So I can't wait. So that's something to look forward to. But of course, even more to look forward to is today's guest. So you mentioned a little bit about her earlier, but wow, what an opportunity. 15-year-old author from Tasmania, beautiful part of Australia, but 15 already with a book out. That is absolutely, spectacular.
Yes. So Kanako Okiron is a delightful teenager who has written a really interesting and thought-provoking book. It's probably best just to jump straight in, because I'll tell you all about Kanako in the interview and talk to you about Not Like It Is in the Movies. Not Like in the Movies is her book. Yeah.
Okay. Well, of course, that's a thing close to my heart. So, like you said, maybe we should jump straight into the amazing interview that you got to enjoy.
Hello, book lovers. We have a first for you today. I think that our author today is our first teenaged indie author. I'm speaking with Kanako Okiron, who is currently 15, and she's an author from Hobart. She's proudly biracial. She's of Japanese descent, and her book, Not Like in the Movies, is her debut novel. I love cats is what she tells us on her website, and so I'm already a fan of hers because I love cats too. She also loves talking about philosophy and gazing at anything that'll catch her eye. And she tells us she's usually approachable, but nothing is for sure. So welcome, Kanako.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. And of course, I'm coming to you today from the very, very cold land of near Gabor, which is Mount Macedon on Woiwurrung country in Victoria. Hobart and Tassie, tell us a little bit about the traditional owners down there. Where are you from in terms of those words?
So I'm from Nipaluna, which is Hobart in Pavlovas, which is a Tasmanian Aboriginal language.
That's good. And basically that is a proud recognition of all of the parts of Australia that we're on. And it's really exciting to see the work that's happening around the Uluru Statement and truth-telling and treaty that's going on at the moment.
It's very relevant.
Just fantastic. Really good. Let's tickle around to you first of all, though. Tell me, why writing? What was it about writing that drew you in? And from such a young age, you started when you were 10.
Well, I've just always been influenced by, since I was little, writing stories has been a contributor to a lot of my life. I don't want to sound too deep, but
no, go for it. Deep is fine.
Just dealing with things that happen in my life, and I think writing was that sort of escape for me. I would just write about anything. I used to make magazines about my local area, kind of inspired by my local area. And just I loved creative writing at school, one of my favourite subjects. So I'd always be looking for new story ideas, and reading a lot of books about philosophy and things have really helped with my writing. And so since I was 10, I just really enjoyed that kind of I didn't really like sports or anything like that. I just like to sit and write, and for just hours I'd get sheets of paper and just scribble out words that would come in my head. And and then it wasn't until when I'm writing my first novel I typed it, but before then I was just writing for the fun of it, just by hand, and anything that would come up I'd write about.
There's something magic about seeing the words come out on the page at the end of the pen, isn't it? It's just, then there's a whole story there.
Yeah, it's really a great feeling to write. just freely, and no one's there to tell you what to do. You can just do it yourself, and you can write about anything, and there's like no limits, so it's great.
Fantastic. So you mentioned philosophy there. Tell me a little bit about the kind of, I guess, philosophical writings or the things that you like to read that deal with philosophy.
I've always been into I first got into philosophy because my mum got me a School of Life book, a kid's book about, it was something like Curious Minds or something. I really enjoyed that book, and it opened me up to philosophers, and because before then I don't think I really knew what philosophers were. So when I was 12, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I need to read more of this. And then I think that's what my mum says that's probably what made me read more books, because before that I wasn't really reading much books. I was writing a lot, but I wasn't getting as much information. So I read School of Life, and as well as anything I could find in the library about philosophy, and or ancient philosophy is really interesting.
What is it that attracts you, or what makes you curious about those writings? What is it that you enjoy? Just
the way they are really interested to see what people are thinking, and what philosophers, if I agree with them, if I disagree, and it makes me question a lot about life and why we existing and things. And so it's really helpful. If I'm going through a hard time, I'll just read some philosophy books, and it really gives me a new perspective on life, and it's kind of helped me write my books, because I can use that information that I've got from the philosophy book and use it in my own writing, which I've done with my novel. So it's been really helpful.
It's really interesting to hear that you're using the philosophy in your stories. Does it help you create your worlds? Does it help you deepen the reader's understanding of your characters? Can you see that there's a way that it helps you make the stories grow, or is it more that it supports you to put your ideas out there?
I think a bit of both, like what you said. It puts my views out there, and also I think it makes my books open to interpretation for readers, and they can take away their own theories and thoughts about it. So even though it is centred on one particular thing, I think people could work out what it's mainly about. There's also deeper parts in the book that people will maybe think, readers will think, oh, maybe that's can be open to interpretation. Or so I don't think I do have an idea I want people to think about, but in the end, everyone's thoughts are individual. So everyone is going to have their own, obviously, specific interpretations, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, as you say, opens other people's minds, really, the same way philosophers have opened yours, And often we don't quite know the message that we're writing into stories until it's kind of written and somebody else reads it, isn't it? You go, oh, yeah, there it is.
I didn't think about it that way, or that kind of thing, It's really great to hear other people's opinions of it.
Yeah, fantastic. What other books do you read? Because I'm sure there's more than philosophy in your life.
Well, I grew up when I was little reading a lot of Geronimo Stilton and Thea Stilton. Those were the only books I read when I used to read books. I'd ask my mum, she'd be like, "Do you read anything else?" And no, just Thea Stilton, please. And for school, they'd give out books for free for a read. If you read 100 nights of books, they'd give you a free book. And I would just say I want Thea Stilton, so I'd just go to the shelf and check for any Thea Stilton. Even if I'd already read it, I'd grab that and read that. So I loved it so much,
Now, I must admit I had to look up Thea Stilton because you did mention that when we got some information from you. So what is it about Thea Stilton and all of her stories? Because I believe she's an Italian author and all of her works got translated. So what is it about those stories that, made you love them?
I think it was just the 5 mice, from different countries. That was the first time I was introduced to diversity in books, because at that time there wasn't really many diverse characters, and these were mice from different countries. So I just thought that's really cool. And that just really and the place, and every book they'd go to a different country, and because they were 5 friends that met at a university called Mouseford Academy.
Fantastic.
So they all have different personalities, and they're all like really funny, and it's just entertaining to see them traveling the world, and especially when they went to Australia, like that, because there's one mouse that's from Australia, so I think that's really cool. It's just opened, I think a lot of people like it because it just opens us up to diversity, and they have the stories are easy for young people to understand, but also there's deeper meanings, I think, inside each story, and have morals about like saving the environment, which really helps inform people at a young age, because people who pick up those books are probably like 7 or 6 years old. And I've given some of my Geronimo Stilton books to my cousin, who's like 7 years old, and she's really getting into them. So I want to pass on the books I liked when I was younger to my cousins. And
That's good. Thinking about, the environment and travelling the world and all of those kind of things. So, as you can imagine, when I was a kid, it was much harder to imagine the rest of the world, and it all had to come through books. But as well as reading, now, of course, we have the internet, and there's so much social media and all of those kind of things, leading into where your book, Not Like in the Movies, is. But what are the other things that have influenced you in your life in terms of you shaping how you think about the world, or what you see as important in the world, or how you can explore your curiosity?
Probably the news, mostly, because when I was little, since I'm little, I've always been like watching the news, the 6 o'clock news. And just, I've always obviously taking up a lot of information in my head and about like politics and things that really only a few years have since I've been getting into politics, and been finding it really interesting, and also like reading the newspaper. I used to not read the newspaper, and now I do it every weekend. My dad buys the newspaper, which I never, since I was like 12, I started reading the newspaper. I really enjoyed it. But also just seeing, like what's on TV, like TV shows, and kind of inspired my debut novel. And just anything around me. I'm just constantly looking for things that I'm interested in. I find things I wasn't into before but I'm into now. So it's just really it's changing a lot, like so. Which is either a good or bad thing, but I think it's a good thing.
In most ways, I think it is a good thing, as long as you have those, I guess, the grounding in place when you can go, all right, I'm turning it off for an hour or a day or a week or whatever, and I'm going to do something like read a book. But it doesn't sound like that's a problem with yourself. Tell me, did you enjoy, is enjoy the right word? I'll leave it as enjoy, the political campaign that we've just had in Australia and a change of government. It was a pretty wild ride there for a while.
Yeah, it was really crazy for me, because a lot of things happened. I was just like, obviously, like every other Australian, I was tuning into the election, and I was like, at the start of the election, I was like, no, because Liberals were getting more seats. And then my sister was like, that's just a prediction, my older sister. And I was like, oh my God, the seats are going up. And then my dad changed the channel, and I was like, why is the seats different from the other channel? And sorry, I sound really insane, but
no, I am with you. It was like, please don't let it happen like it did in 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people were just so desperate for a change.
And this election was just really interesting from other elections, because with the rise of independence, and it was, I'd never seen obviously anything like it, because probably last election I wasn't really into politics, but now I'm into politics.
And people's participation in democracy, I think that's what I was most pleased about as well, is that the things that were important to people in our country, you know, the cost of living and the recognition of the First Nations, Aboriginal people that, you know, we've been on their country now for so long and they are so generously asking us to walk with them is just amazing. And health, you know, working in health and education and the arts and all of those things that I think, oh, please, please, please get it right now. We put you in. You've now got a whole group of crossbenchers to talk to and to keep the dialogue open. I really hope that they can change the way Australia is working.
With the diversity in the new government is just so great to see.
It is fantastic, isn't it? So, you know, we've got the first Australians of Muslim faith. We've got a number of Indigenous Australians. We've got more Asian Australians in. My daughter was very excited that the gentleman from WA who was a dolphin trainer, because when she was a little girl, that's what she wanted to be, was a dolphin trainer.
I got so excited. I was like, this guy's a dolphin trainer. That is amazing.
That is just fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, so no, that was really good. Lots of things to be involved in and lots of people, I guess, kind of thinking about fame. So let's have a look at your book. I'm going to read the blurb for our listeners. Not Like in the Movies by Kanako Okiron. This is a quote that is open to interpretation. So you're going to find Kanako's book on contemporary from the hit tell-all documentary starring 17-year-old Zelda Mulette, daughter of the award-winning Hollywood leading lady Valeria Mulette. Now produced as a written edition, you can easily read and learn never-before-seen content, unedited deleted scenes, and enticing stories that will have you itching to hear more. In association with CNN, Celebrity News Network, and the Mulette family, you will be able to read Zelda's entertaining dialogue as she candidly navigates through her adolescence growing up in the public eye. And then there's a quote by Valeria Mulette, Zelda's mum. Praise for Not Like in the Movies. This is more than just a documentary. It is my Zelda's open letter to the universe, her desire to let go, her ultimate meaning of fame and fortune, and what she truly believes in. I am forever inspired and grateful for her perseverance and honesty. Let's jump into fame and Not Like in the Movies. What was the inspiration behind this book?
When I was like 10 or 11, I just became really obsessed with the idea of fame. Because growing up, I've had different obsessions over the years, some good, some bad. But this fame, I couldn't really tell, obviously, if it was a good or bad thing. And so I just became really interested in it. And like, I got really obsessed with like seeing celebrities being interviewed on talk shows. I thought that was really cool. And if only I could be like them, then I would have I'd be really satisfied and I'd have a great life. And all those like fantasies I was getting from, because obviously I wasn't really happy with who I was at the time. But it wasn't like I was super sad or anything. I was just thinking like, but if I am famous, I'm going to be even more happy than I am now. I'm going to have everything that I could ever want. It'll take me away from things that happened to me in the past and feeling lonely and things because I have fame. And so then I was like 12 and I was like thinking to myself a bit from those past 2 years. I was like, maybe this fame is not a good idea. And so I kind of grown up, evolved a bit since then. So I was thinking, yeah, I don't know. I think fame is just not a good idea, but maybe I should write about it. And because I thought writing will fix things, like whenever I have
that has before.
For any writer, they write about it. So I thought that's a great idea. And so I got a pen out and sheets of paper, because that's what I used to do, and started writing as much as I could. And immediately, I was really going fast with the plot. And I was like, wow, I'm coming up with so many ideas, because this is how much fantasies I've had about fame, and this is probably what fame is like, even though I had no idea. But I think that really opened me up to how fame is not always a good thing, and it can be damaging to people's mental health, and not everyone wants to be famous, and people who are famous probably regret it afterwards, even though some parts are good. But if you're just in it for the attention, it kind of just takes it away from the reason why people are famous in the first place. So I think that's why I wanted to write it, so to give that message to not just people who have thought about fame, but also people who haven't really thought about fame, because I want to show them that that's actually a good thing, that they haven't considered that idea, and even if they have, they've moved on from that. So
So what do you think are the damaging parts of fame that you're warning people from? What to you are those things to be careful of?
I think it's just being constantly in the public eye and having like photographers everywhere you go, and especially if you've, a big theme in my book is like court case. So like as we've seen recently with like Johnny Depp, like his court case and things, and that just must be like really difficult for famous people to deal with, and because then their careers are already like going down the drain, and there's people against them. They feel like they can never go anywhere without being like obviously watched and recognised, and even that, and people asking for your autograph and things. You don't want to be mean, because then they'll tell people that you're not a good person. So there's like a lot of pressure to be nice and friendly and smile, and not too like aggressive and like sad and stuff, because that can also depress some people, fans and people. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of pressure, and you're always just thinking about what other people think of you.
Kind of giving away your independence, aren't you? And I guess, and your autonomy and control of your own life if you have to live up to other people's expectations. Yeah. And just challenging.
Yeah. Talk shows and things, and being or interviews, or just being asked personal questions and that you don't really want to answer and things. And it's just like, I wish I didn't do this in the first place. And also like with social media, like people can be judged for, famous people are sometimes judged for their appearance and by obviously online trolls and things. That can be really difficult for their mental health, and it makes them depressed. And that's probably why a lot of famous people go to therapy, because it's hard for them to deal with this fame and pressure.
What do you think it is about the growth in, I guess, the audience's need to know what colour underwear people are wearing and what milk they have on their cereal and all of those kind of things? So what do you think has brought on this need to know that people, well, a lot of people have these days?
Sorry, like need to know what they're doing?
So they need to know famous people, So, you know, why do you and I turn on social media or the news and then want to know more about that person? We probably don't go down to the underwear level, but, you know, it seems as though, you know, we can't get enough of some people.
Yeah, like we've seen with like stan culture, which is like a stalker and a fan. People call them stans.
Okay, I've learned something. Thank you for teaching me there.
Like online thing, or people just get into like certain people. They find someone that has maybe the same sort of, a famous person that has maybe some of the same struggles as them, like growing up, or their music, if they're a musician, appeals to them and makes them like, cheers them up, and they can relate to that sort of music. That, I guess, that kind of draws them to that person. They become interested and want to know more, like about that person, maybe, and go maybe a bit too much into their personal life. But, and also like an actor, or they just really think they're good at acting, and they just, I guess, there's anyone in the world probably finds at least one person that they're really famous person that they're really into, and not everyone, but some people, people who get obsessed with things, and they find
just has that fascination.
Yeah, and then it kind of takes them away from their problems, like looking at this person and thinking, wow.
I'll think of someone else. Yes, Tell me then a little bit about Zelda Mulette. So Zelda is the protagonist, the main character in Not Like in the Movies. Tell us about Zelda. How closely is she, I guess, a reflection of you and the things that you feel about fame?
Yeah, I think we are pretty similar, because my auntie was reading the book and she said, "You look actually quite similar to the protagonist." And I was like, yes, I really wish she didn't tell me that. But yeah, it is true, because I reckon we would be like friends if we weren't, like, if she was a real person.
If she was real, yeah.
But obviously we come from very different backgrounds. I'm not famous and she is, but I think we'd know how to solve like each other's problems and things. Like, she is just like sort of thinks the same way I do, like how she sees the world, and she's close with a pet. Like, I have a cat and she's close with a dog, and she's just like kind of introverted. She kind of keeps a distance from people, though her older sister likes being in the spotlight and she's fine with having the attention. But I have an older sister and she's obviously not like she wants the attention, but she is definitely less introverted than I am, and she gets on well with people and is really confident and stuff. But I'm just kind of more like keep a distance from people, and like that's why I probably said I'm usually approachable, because if someone comes up to me and go, "Hello, hi," or like in Hobart, it's really small, so someone at the supermarket, and I don't really want to see them. They'll be like, "Hi," because I don't want to be rude.
Yep. Yeah, I come from quite a small country town, so I absolutely know. And being a midwife and having been a part of the 2 small hospitals around here, I know many people. But sometimes you just want to be anonymous, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the messages? And I know that there are some secrets in the book, and I'm not going to do any spoilers for people, but what is it you think perhaps that Zelda learns about herself that's the most important lesson for her?
I think she learns that in the end that love is like the most important thing, like to her and her family, and she lives her life thinking that she kind of, I guess, accepts that this is her life, being famous, and for the rest of her life she's not going to be fully gone from the public eye. People always going to see her, because from some things that happened in the book, people are going to recognise her. But she's just, I think she's probably matured and learnt her lessons, like that she's never really going to have it all figured out, and that's okay. And that's
kind of make her peace with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there another book? Do we have a sequel where Zelda is an adult or 10 years older?
I'll have to see if like more people read it and love it and want to have a part 2. Maybe there will be a sequel, but for now I haven't really thought of any ideas for the sequel. I think it'll be best left on its own. But
very good.
If suddenly there's like a huge popularity of the book, maybe. Who knows?
Always open to it.
Yeah.
Now, you are also a graphic artist, and I see many fantastic drawings that you've got currently on Instagram. If people are following you, they can have a bit of a look on Instagram. So your favourite subjects that you're drawing, tell us about all of the things that you draw, but what are your favourites?
Mostly like my favourite musicians, like fan art. My favourite TV shows. I just love drawing fan art for a lot of reasons. Sometimes cartoons, like things, just funny things that come in my head. I think they'll make a great cartoon I draw. Or as well as writing. I love to draw. Been drawing since I was like 3 years old, and doodling on walls and things. It's been a huge part of my life, and being creative and drawing is just like also a great thing. If I'm not writing, I'm usually drawing, and if I'm not drawing, I'm usually writing. So
there you go.
Yeah,
pretty much fills up your day, and that's a good easy way to be. What do you use for your drawing? Because my daughter is a digital artist, and I know all my children have got those gigantic iPads that they use. Do you draw? Are you a paper and pencil person? Are you a digital designer? What's your favourite way?
I mostly draw on my iPad. I have Procreate. I use Procreate.
Yes, I think that's what they do too. Yeah,
it's a Tasmanian app, which is
excellent.
Shout out to to
Tassie. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't really draw on. I sometimes sketch on notepads when I find the time on my notepad. That I usually try and draw still life on my notepad, but otherwise I'm mostly doing it on the iPad. I kind of think maybe I should draw a bit more by hand, but it's just easier. So yeah.
Yeah, and so instant, and you can rub it out without too much hassle. I'm just amazed at what they can do. Yeah.
It's done in 3 seconds. Yeah.
It is done.
Yeah.
Future for you? Is there a future in publishing some of your drawings, do you think, or is that more an enjoyment thing?
It is more of an enjoyment thing, but I would love to sell like prints or maybe like merchandise, if I get more popular or people want to see more of my drawings, then I'd love to make. I tried with my dad setting up an Etsy shop where selling my prints, but that didn't really get anywhere. But my dad's made a few stickers of my drawings, so.
Very good, very good. Actually, Redbubble. I think my daughter uses Redbubble as well.
Oh,
and she just gets a trickle of sales from her stickers and things as well. She does lots of fan art too. Sorry, this sounds like I'm talking more about her than you, but might be somewhere for you to have a look. Because you don't need to worry about and it's not an ad for Redbubble, I don't get a kickback, but you don't need to worry about designing the things that it goes on. You can just put your art up there and people can choose to put it on a pencil or a T-shirt or a cap or a children's all-in-one, whatever you found, or stickers. And she just regularly gets a trickle of stuff from some of her fan art. Not Doctor Who. Who's the other one? She'll be cross with because I don't know. Can't think who it is. Anyway, it's kind of associated with Doctor Who, but she does do some fan art stuff for that, which is just for her.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus she does all my book covers, so she doesn't do just that. Tell me now, let's look at your book. Why did you choose self-publishing? Because you're an indie publisher. Tell me about that. What was behind that?
I submitted to a few literary agents but didn't really get anywhere, so I thought my dad was suggested how about self-publishing, and I thought that was a really great idea. So and I thought I wasn't really sure at first, but I thought, I trusted ones. Made sure my dad checked with me, real ones, and then we found Tableau, which was a really cool self-publishing service, and I think I recommend it for anyone who is starting out as a writer.
I haven't heard of that one. So is it Tableau?
Yeah.
So that helped you put the formatting and do all the ebook and covers and those kind of things? Right, yeah.
Yeah, you can do it all yourself, and it's just a great independent experience. So, it's really rewarding in the end.
To see that book come up. What was it like to see your book out there in the world?
Quite surreal. Just wow, my book's in my hands. This work is finally in a book. I was quite relieved that it I managed to do all of this, and well done to myself. And
exactly. Good on you.
Parents for letting it happen.
Yeah.
And, it was a great feeling to see all that work put into a book.
Brilliant. When an author gets a book or starts to put their book out there, often they do, a bit of a book tour, or they try to go to festivals or things like that. And given your age, you're obviously still at school, so perhaps a little bit more difficult to, get yourself on some of those roundabouts. But what have you been enjoying about being an author, in terms of the marketing side?
Yeah, I just really love the connect. I wish there'd be more, entering more writing festivals. I would love to attend writing festivals and meet other writers. I think that would probably make me being an author more exciting, I think. Because right now I'm kind of in my own little bubble, so I'd love to interact with other authors and just let them the more broader writing. Hopefully maybe some authors listening to this podcast and want to connect. But I think
absolutely.
I think So now it's just seeing what other authors are writing and knowing that a part of that community is really cool. And yeah, I haven't really got much to say that about
No,
writing
that's
a lot.
okay. But to be connected so early is a good thing. And I know that on Australian Book Lovers, we've spoken to the Tasmanian Writers Centre, and I know they've got some great programs, and part of what they do is connect a lot of writing groups. They are a great resource, and I know they're encouraging sort of primary school and secondary school and, you know, older writers and emerging writers, some of the programs that they've got happening there. So, they're a great resource. But it's been difficult the last few years for people to get connected, and a lot of the festivals have been cancelled or have gone online. It's not so easy, and difficult to find just the right kind of group, because there's writers and there's writers. Like, I love science fiction and fantasy, so finding science fiction and fantasy writers that I can just talk to and no one's going to blink when you talk about dragons and magic, it's a little bit tricky to do that. You can't just talk to any person in the street because they're looking as if, say, are you crazy, old lady? What are you doing? So, it's trying to find those people who share the loves of what you're writing about, which is important.
I agree with that.
Okay, so what's next for you? Are you doing more writing? Because obviously, but so what year are you in school? You've still got
I'm in year
little
9.
Year 9, okay. Now, year 9 I always call the dark times, when you spend more time out of school than in school. Is that what is happening to you this year? Are you going on camps? Are you doing all sorts of different types of experience rather than sitting learning just from the teacher?
Yeah, kind of just, I haven't really done much like outdoor stuff, but when I was younger, I definitely did more like camps and things. But I think going up into grades, there isn't really much, depending on the school. Some schools do more outdoor stuff, but this, I guess because of COVID and things, there isn't really much like.
It's been difficult, But have you wouldn't have had a chance yet, I guess, to choose more English and writing related subjects, or even, you know, the philosophy minded topics as well?
As of now, there's like no philosophy subjects, but maybe like next year or so there'll be philosophy, so I'll definitely do that. So I'm really interested in that kind of stuff.
And what about writing? What is next on your writing agenda? What can we expect from you?
Definitely, I guess, keep an eye out for more like books I might be putting out. At the moment, probably not for a while, because I've spent a lot of my parents' money on a book. So they said, no books for a while, please. And also the cost of living and stuff. So
yes,
it is quite difficult times right now. Yeah, just also because of that, I think if anyone wants to read my book and isn't able to buy it, I'm more than happy to send it over to people for free. I just love to
I saw that on your website. That's an incredibly generous offer.
Just because I've already sent it to a few of my friends and they leave reviews in return. It's just a really nice thing to give back. And
it is, because reviews certainly help.
Like, you have to buy every single book. I think some books you can just, like, that's what libraries are for, but also if my book is not available at every library due to being an indie author. So I'm more than happy to send a free copy and to help people out. I might give them, like, make them feel better if they're going through a hard time, because it is an entertaining book. So, yeah.
With a little humour. I keep seeing that in the reviews, that this was kind of important and, you know, serious, but also very funny.
I always like to put humour in my books, like, because I feel like a book or anything in life can't be fully enjoyed unless there's a bit of humour in there. So that's kind of my mentality going through life, is just have a bit of humour and enjoy yourself.
Take yourself a little bit lighter sometimes. I do have to ask you about your cat. Tell me about your cat.
I have 2 cats. So
excellent.
The cat that I just said to leave my room is Percy. He's a tabby. And he's really close to me. But Sylvia is the other cat, and she isn't really close to me. I don't think she likes me very much, or anyone in the house apart from my sister. She loves my sister. She's a black and white cat, and and Sylvia and Percy also don't really have a great relationship. Like every single time since Percy comes over, Sylvia just hisses at him. So
right,
I don't think it will ever improve. But that's my
giving off the wrong vibes. Yeah. Because we have Darren and I both got cats, although I've got dogs as well, but they're not my dogs. They are my children's dogs. And Darren's cat is often heard meowing in the back of some of the podcasts as he, tells Darren it's time to get out. And he's this is Bobby, and he's a little bit of a ragdoll cat. Yeah, he's just gorgeous.
I love
and
ragdolls.
they are so lovely. Yeah, and he made it into Darren's book, the Hallucigenia Project, which was just fantastic. I mean, he's, of course, a slightly different character from himself, but I love that he made it into there, which was really good. So perhaps Percy might make it into your next book.
Yeah, I think Pet's a great addition to a story, so I might add a cat this time because not like in the movies, it's a dog, but I'm definitely a cat person. So
me too. What advice do you have for anyone who's thinking about, or particularly any younger person thinking about writing a book and publishing a book?
I think just keep writing and enjoying the process. Like, don't take it too seriously at first. Just enjoy it. Yeah. And you don't overthink it, but don't underthink it either. As I read in some philosopher's really interesting book. Yeah, I think it's just important to take things in moderation in your writing, and you should take breaks. You don't have to write every day, and if you don't write every day, don't punish yourself. I think that's okay. I didn't really have a productive day as the other days, as long as I just, instead of if you didn't write that day, like planning out other things for your story and how you want it to go, and even if you plan your story at first, it's very likely that you won't really take that direction of the story, because I rarely plan my stories. And that can kind of sometimes be like kind of disastrous if I'm in the middle of a story and I don't really know what happens next. But in a way that is kind of helpful, because you don't have to. You can always change your story at any time and take different directions. You with kind of surprise yourself as you're writing. So, just don't leave anything. Don't expect anything, I should say. Yeah, don't expect too much from your writing. Just see where it goes and, hope for the best.
And it may come out to be not like in the movies.
Yes.
And what about for readers? Kanako, tell us why would a reader pick up Not Like in the Movies? What do you think is in it for them?
I think a reader should pick up. Is that your question? Like why they should pick up? I think it's just because anyone who's like been considered thoughts about fame, or if the reader is a famous person, maybe one day a famous person will pick up my book. That would be really cool anyway.
That would be cool.
I'll review it and say, get this book. This book.
It's so helpful.
If there's any famous people listening, I think I think it would be like really relatable to anyone, regardless of if they're famous or not, because it's just, I think it's really enjoyable for anyone who can relate to like just being younger as a kid and having their own fantasies. Because I think as a kid, everyone has like a dream of theirs. It's sometimes not a very necessary dream, but they I think will just make people think that's okay, and that was just part of their childhood. And I think it'll just make people, I think readers will just enjoy it for what it is, and it shouldn't be taken too seriously, because some bits are kind of unrealistic and probably wouldn't really happen to famous people, because it's been written by a person who has not experienced fame at all. But I just hope people enjoy it, and readers to just think, okay, maybe that didn't really happen, but it's funny anyway. So
yes. Yeah, and so it's a bit entertaining as well as being kind of, educational, enlightening, Kanako, where can people find your book, and where are you on social media?
So people can find my book on Amazon, Booktopia, Barnes and Noble, and other bookstores as well. Some other bookstores. But you can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Okiron Kanako for all my handles, and also Goodreads. If you could leave a review, that would be nice.
Yes, please leave a review, even if it's just some stars or a couple of words.
Even if
every
it's
little
like
bit helps.
a 1 star, I really won't mind, because it just gives me feedback. It's what I can do better next time. So
fantastic.
Because like when I hear,
and of course,
when I hear about people going like, leave a 5-star review, I'm like, well, some people don't really think it should be a 5-star review. Sorry about that.
Right.
But, I just think, just leave your honest. Be honest. I will not be offended.
Better to live honest, because we are all learning, and there are more courses. I'm doing courses all the time, and I started way later than you with my writing, so I'm very happy to be told that there's other bits and pieces that I need to improve in my writing, for sure.
Oh, and also age is not a barrier. So whether you start writing young, whether you start writing old, it does not matter. And it should actually, I shouldn't say old. Whether
I won't be offended. That's all right.
Sorry. Okay. You're not old. You're not old. But
thank you.
just write whenever you feel like it, and you can publish a book anytime. And because some people have read articles, people like, I published a book when I was in my 60s, and that's fine. Or I was rejected like 22 times, and I ended up being published like when I was 40. And so it's just really it's limitless book writing.
Yes, absolutely. And the stories come to you when they come to you, and sometimes you just have to get them out there. So I'm really pleased that we were able to have your book on the Australian Book Lovers website, and you'll find it on the YA page. There it is, Not Like in the Movies, by Kanako Okiron. And thank you so much for your time here in the middle of the week. I'm really pleased to be able to chat with you. It has been lovely getting to know you a little more.
Same with you, It was a great conversation.
Good. That is lovely. All right, take care, everybody, and we will head back to the podcast.
Bye.
Arigato gozaimasu, Kanako. Thank you so much for being a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Sugoi ne. And wow, what an opportunity, as we mentioned before, 15 and talking about philosophy and reality and having written the book.
And fame and the problems of fame and all of those kind of things. So
many cool themes to work on. And well, truthfully, pretty heavy themes too. They can be.
Yeah. For sure. And also thinking about, some lighter things, thinking about Percy and Sylvia, her cats, but, her compassion about if you can't afford the book, to let her know. And, she sent out a few free copies to friends and people who haven't been able to afford to buy the book. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, which was pretty good. And for those of you who wondered about who the hell I was trying to remember, the people that my daughter did the stickers for, the derivative of Doctor Who, I'm sure many of you were shouting at the speakers, Torchwood, 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 you silly, foolish woman. So yes, Torchwood is in fact the show that my daughter sells a lot of fan art about, and she's met many of the people at the Comic-Cons and those kind of things. So
groovy.
They've taken some of her fan art, they appreciated it in person, and taken some back to the UK with them. So yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, was Torchwood. You'll realise, that. But some of the interesting things that Kanako talked about, there's the desire for fame, and it's interesting because there are certainly pros and cons to fame and celebrity, and fame these days is kind of synonymous with celebrity, although a famous author doesn't necessarily hold the same place as a famous songwriter or reality TV show person. But I found a little blog posted by Olamide Kaka, who's a Chief Executive Officer at Oaklinks, which he published just over 12 months ago. And he says, being a famous person has its ups and downs. So the 5 major advantages in his view: celebrities get special treatment wherever they go. That's pretty much a no-brainer. Being famous generally means being richer, one of the obvious advantages. Celebrities are recognised wherever they go. Celebrities and famous people have fans, and fans and can be inspirational, motivational, and very humbling. And the 5th one being that many opportunities arise when people become famous. So that if you're famous, career-related or not, then you kind of get opportunities for merchandising or other movies or different creative opportunities, those kind of things. He describes the 5 major disadvantages of being a celebrity as: famous people can't do things that the average person can't necessarily go to the supermarket on a regular day. You can attract stalkers, so some of those fans can be, as Kanako described to me, you can be a stan, a stalker fan, which was something new that I heard that she told me about.
That's a cool word. I haven't heard that terminology before.
Yeah. Number 3, a celebrity status can attract too many fake friends, so people that like you only for your celebrity rather than for you. Number 4, people constantly judge celebrities, and this is a part of what Kanako's book deals with. Celebrities have no privacy. So there you go. You pretty much can't dash out, and you are at the mercy of the tabloids and the paparazzi and those kind of things. So lack of privacy is a little tricky. So in conclusion, it should be a blessing, but if it's not properly handled, can become a burden. And I think that Kanako's character in the book, she describes a really nice arc for the character. So I hope that a lot of people will go out and read her book, not like in the movies.
Yes. And I mean, look, who doesn't want to be famous? I'd love to be famous on one hand.
Would you?
And well, because of a couple of those points in the top 5. One, for me, fame instantly it means to me, 1, not waking up worrying about money. 2, being able to go anywhere around the world. And 3, wherever you are, you're treated nicely to most degrees. And 4, this myth that I think it's a myth that you can't do anything. I mean, I could go 99 places out of 100 if I wanted to, and if I chose my destinations, where I'd be fine. The ones that complain about the paparazzi usually are chasing the paparazzi themselves, I suspect. But just the ability. I think as someone famous, I'd love that lifestyle where you could turn it on and off. You could have a retreat somewhere, and then when you need to generate publicity, you shift back to your loft in the city, whatever it be, whatever main city around the world. But the irony is, and I love the fact that Kanako talks about reality and sort of reality TV, I suppose, in this instance. And there is I guess there's so many different mediums today, isn't there? With you've got Instagram,
and social media hasn't helped. Infamy, I guess, or famous people at all. It makes it far easier to be famous, and therefore far easier to be hated or stalked or successful. A minor celebrity can, get up there quite quickly, or face the whole, vitriol that used to be just to, people in the gossip columns.
I like to believe that there is a shift in fame, and I do believe there's a little bit of a dividing line between being infamous, like for example, and I'm using huge air quotes here, Instagram famous, versus an actor, actress, musician, playwright, whatever it might be. In my head, famous is famous, but it's usually a person's famous if they have gained attraction from a global audience for something that they would do regardless of whether they got that attraction, that intention or not. And then I think a lot of people that aren't aware of what happens behind the cameras or behind the scenes in music or any field where that tends to bring in the spotlight some very famous people. There's so much that goes into being famous, as far as it's such a structured necessity. It's a rock band, for example, that's famous. They'll travel with schedules that would make anyone's eyes water. And a lot of times there's this illusion of looseness, when reality is they land in a city, they have to do maybe a radio interview, maybe a press conference, get to sound check, rehearse, eat, rest, play the show, get to the next city to do it again and again and again. So a lot of people say, I want to be famous, and that's fantastic, but there's so much work behind it. And a lot of the sort of lifestyle is an illusion created to maintain that sense of famous. So anyone who explores that realm, that dividing line between the mirror of reality and what's fed to us as real and what is real, it's such a tightrope game of illusion versus fact, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I just crack up when I see the photos of the set designs, basically, of an interior of a jet plane, for example, that might sit in a tiny little sound studio, but that gets rented out for people to use for their Instagram photos.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The illusion is just unbelievable. Sitting at champagne on a private jet. Really? What do you actually do? I don't get it. And when you realise they've rented a little space, but then it gives that illusion of fame. And same as I've worked in a little bit of reality TV, and I know the difference between what goes on the screen and what happens behind the camera. And unless somebody has been behind the camera, how can they know?
Well, yes, and I think Sandy Barker, her latest book, The Dating Game, was about exactly that, the reality show, and one of the contestants was the journalist, I think, who jumped in to uncover all those things and report on what was happening. Pretty sure Naomi Shippen, our audio reviewer, did a review of The Dating Game for us.
I could only try to imagine what it must be like growing up now with all the different technologies and all the different levels of fame and all the different avenues to become famous, infamous, popular, call it what you might. But I think it would be such an interesting chat to have with a number of different, age groups about what fame is nowadays. Because, as I was mentioning before, I think fame for me is when somebody who works hard or at least has produced some sort of fantastic art that touches a moment. Because it could be a hit single. It could be a one-off novel. It could be, a short story that rockets around and turns into a TV series. You just don't know. But they have created something that most normally the famous is when people have a body of work that's eventually spotlighted, and then that gives that body of work the ability to continue. When it comes to, but whatever the digital realms are available at that time, whether it be radio, TV, internet, is that those are tools used to spotlight that art. But we've transitioned now, I think, into something like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, where the medium itself is used as an expression of art. But if you remove one of those platforms, that person's form of expression is gone. But that is also, they're coupled to that in order to gain their popularity, their fame. And so it's such a tightrope walk, and it's such an interesting discussion to be had, and I think it could be talked upon for days.
Yes, but we haven't got days.
We do. We have a couple of minutes. Yeah, just a couple of minutes a week.
Just a couple of minutes a week, indeed.
Isn't that the power of literature, power of books? Here we got the power of Kaneko's book, talking and raising those issues, and fundamentally they come down to some pretty heavy philosophical issues, depending on which side of the fence you are on fame and what you feel is fame. And if when it comes to your idea of fame, do you think it is a good price to pay? I mean, because when people say, well, there's upsides and downsides to being famous, and I can say, well, there's upsides and downsides to not being famous. And someone might say, well, there's upsides and downsides to being rich, which I'm sure, but I could equally say there are definitely less upsides and more downsides to not being rich. That's just
I could give it a red hot go, is what I'm saying. But anyway, there you go. Yeah. However, this is a nice segue into one of my quotes. So this is a quote from Bethany Webster. Now, Bethany is a writer, an international speaker, and a transformational coach. So she's an American, and she started blogging in 2013 about the mother wound, and then, got worldwide demand for her books and talks. But she says the cost of becoming real is never as high as the cost of remaining your false self.
That is a bit of a cryptic, heavy comment, really.
And I thought it's kind of fitted nicely into the whole fame and celebrity and being the famous person as opposed to being yourself. But she talks about the cost of becoming real being never as high as the cost of remaining your false self. So if you're famous, is it the famous person that's, false? Is it the persona? Is it the, is that a part of you regardless? Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting one.
I have flicked the TV on for reasons I can never work out. Maybe watch a football game or something, but I catch commercials for some of the reality TV shows are on network television here in Australia. And knowing how they all work, I think, oh no, they're probably told they're getting famous, and I wonder how many of those people that are part of those shows walk away thinking that they are now that famous person that was created within the show, when realistically if they landed in Tokyo or New York or name any country besides Australia, they're not famous at all. In fact, they could probably go to the Woolies down here, and the only thing that would happen was, oh, they've got funny lips, or he looks. But you know what I mean? Do you walk away having your persona change because you've been manipulated into thinking you're famous? So yeah, or do you walk away knowing that you're just part of a network television program that required some very average acting on your behalf? So it is a tricky one, isn't it? I could definitely see how. All the same, if you were became famous quite quickly for a particular persona that you use in your art form, do you then feel the pressures and obligations to stay in that persona and then become a persona that you created purely for stage performance, for example?
Interesting.
Big price to pay, I think, if you lose your sense of self, but.
It is.
It would depend on how much money's in the bank. No, I joke.
Yeah, good on you, Darren. Give me a quote, please.
Okay, I've got one by Jasper Fforde.
Oh, one of my favourite authors.
And the quote is, "The barriers between reality and fiction are softer than we think, a bit like a frozen lake. Hundreds of people can walk across it, but then one evening a thin spot develops and someone falls through. The whole, of course, is frozen over by the following morning." And that was Jasper Fforde. So that thin lake. And perhaps it's a little bit related to your quote just then, because there's that thin line between keeping yourself or being turned into a personality.
Indeed.
Unbeknown to someone else's making.
Indeed. And Jasper Fforde's books, of course, cross over and back that line between reality and fiction, and characters jumping out of books into daily life. Yes, on his Thursday Next series, where she is a literary detective. So that's a lot of fun. Now, I thought it would be nice to sort of finish on perhaps a slightly more positive quote. So, your success will help many, many people. Your failure is likely to help no one, including yourself. And that's from John Kehoe. And John is a Canadian author, I believe. And he's worldwide recognition is for his pioneering work in the field of mind power. So there you go.
Well, that's interesting. So
a very friendly face.
I always sort of thought it was in the other way, in the sense of, success has definitely helped other people, but the problems you have or the mistakes you make, they're just as knowledgeable. They can be a source of knowledge as well. I mean, if I discover that if I do this and this and it causes speakers to blow up, I'm definitely going to tell somebody who's trying to attempt something, build something similar to me, and say, no, don't do that. I thought that, and I learnt the hard way. So it's interesting.
Your success will help many, many people. Your failure is likely to help no one, including yourself. I feel like it's more around the human potential, is that you might as well give it a shot, because if you just sit there and do nothing, well, that's not going to help anybody. But you're right. Making mistakes is a learning experience for sure.
Oh, well, it's how we get. It's science, isn't it?
Yeah,
science is the art of making mistakes until you find something that is no longer a mistake, and then someone else is allowed to point out forever and ever if they can find a mistake within your non-mistake, and then we build upon that. It's the beauty. I love it. But I've got a little bit of fun one. This is by Tom Clancy. So,
very good.
And the quote is, "The difference between reality and fiction has to make sense." There we go.
Okay, the difference between reality and fiction is that fiction has to make sense. Yeah. Yeah, people will spot those plot holes in a blink, whereas if it's reality,
Well,
the truth is stranger than fiction, don't they say? It kind of slides into there as well.
Yeah, well, fiction may be a way that we make sense of this crazy world, which I definitely think it is the case. So just as many authors before me and after me will do, and just like Kanako's done, and just like you've done, we reality makes zero sense on the best of days. It's just cloaked in like little fabrications of common sense that makes us think there's some sort of order. And then in the fiction, we can sort of remove that thin veneer and have a look at it and try and make sense of what is essentially chaos. So, but I like it. Yeah, fiction has to make sense.
Good one.
Reality doesn't, and usually keeps its promise. So.
All right, talking about promises, tell us who is on the next episode.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So on the next episode, we've got a fantastic author. Her name is Jules Van Mill. She's the author of a book titled A Remarkable Woman, and that is going to be released on the 28th of June. So very soon, very big book, so much to talk about. Jules is she's a fashion industry expert, having worked in their field for a long, long time. She's a painter, she's a writer, she's an all-round just art powerhouse, and the conversation went from World War II to fabrics and fashion to abstract painting, and all things in between, to even parachute pants, which is, I'll let our listeners discover that, how parachute pants got into conversation with such a fantastic author. But it was wonderful. So that is episode 61 coming up very soon, and it was an absolute pleasure to talk with her. But I just want to say once again, thank you to Kanako for being a part, putting out a book at the age of 15.
Yes.
That's congratulations. I hope there's first of many more. I hope we have the opportunity to have you on the show again, Kanako. And in the meantime, anatawa ichiban desu, and arigatou gozaimasu. But we have to talk about... We have to talk a little bit about our tagline today.
Well, we do, but let me say, if you are a listener, one of our favourite listeners, please give us a star on iTunes or wherever you happen to be listening to us, whatever your favourite podcasting platform is. Let us know what you think about the podcast, or if you think there are some ideas or some books that you would like us to chat about. We're on Twitter at Australian Books. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Australian Book Lovers. And if you're a reader and you'd like to be in the semi-regular newsletter, and I have a copy of Jules Van Mill's A Remarkable Woman to give away in the next newsletter. Now, we haven't quite finished the last giveaway, which we've got people writing in for Teeth of a Slow Machine by Andrew Roff and Release by Lucy Christopher. So, yeah, they've been coming in thick and fast for that. So I'm going to have to do the spin the dial and throw the numbers into the random generator and decide who gets the paperback copies of those. But if you want one of Jules's books, jump on to australianbooklovers.com/booklovers and enter for the newsletter giveaways. And if you're an author, if you've got a short story or a novel that you'd like us to list for free on the website, then jump over to australianbooklovers.com/for-authors and put all your details in.
Definitely.
So, tagline, Darren, because we do want people to read more Aussie books.
Yes, so I was thinking, for a little bit of fun,
Yep.
how about we are an advertisement for like a network television reality show, and the drama and all that. But we're with that. I don't even know how to do it. the person that does the voiceover for the commercials, not the actors.
Well, you'd have to do your very. This is Darren Casanco.
Yeah, but we do it more energetic because you got to catch everyone's attention and be like.
Oh.
And up next, the reality show designed to blow your mind, Australian book lovers, who always tell you to remember to read more Aussie books. Stay tuned, that's coming up next. All right, I don't know that's going to work. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for episode 60, and look forward to joining once again for episode 61. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, night, evening adventure on this planet Earth, and take care for now.
Bye.
Hi, this is Naomi Shippen. I love writing in all its many forms: blogs, book reviews, and even novels. Women's fiction, suspense, and domestic noir hold a special fascination for me. and I also enjoy reading stories about young people growing up in a world in which they feel at odds. Today I would like to review Peter Lyre's Rating Normal by Dr. Anna Whateley. This is a young adult novel, but it will appeal to mature age readers as well. Trying to fit in is hard when you're a teenager, but for alphabet girl Peter Lyre, neurodivergence makes it especially tough. Peter has been diagnosed with ADHD, ASD, and SPD, but with the help of rules set out by her therapist, she tries to pass as normal in a world that doesn't understand her differences. Living with her auntie Aunt after her parents quit, Peter tries to find her way in a new home and school. Peter has great friends in Jeb and new girl Sam, and the three of them form the Misfit Stompers, joining forces against a society that maligns them. When Peter goes on a school camp to the snow, she finds her niche. Peter is a natural at skiing, and it is here that she finds real freedom. Away from the confusing behaviour of people who don't follow the rules, she finds solace in speeding through the snowy slopes. During the ski trip, the relationship between Peter and girlfriend Sam blossoms. It is tender and passionate and fraught with the confusion of young love. Peter Lyre's Rating Normal is filled with the dramatic highs and lows that all adolescents must negotiate. Despite their difficult circumstances, Peter, Jeb and Sam are lit with joy and exuberance. It is the special bond they share with each other that gets them through the hard times of growing up, and the extra layers of neurodivergence and same-sex attraction make it all the more poignant.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.